Hello, everyone.
We're live.
Hey everyone! Welcome to the third part of Jimmy the Genty, and we're getting started now.
And here we are with episode 16.
Tension was building in the sheds. Two black fires named Richard and Roger were disturbing the peace. They had both taken a dislike to Terry. Like many of their brothers and sisters, they did not like the standard fives. Richard and Roger were both built by the LMS. 842 of them were built. With such a vast number of the class, they saw themselves as the perfect 460 locomotive. This went to their smoke boxes until the arrival of British Railways Standard Class 5. They used many elements of the Black Fives as the blueprint for the standards. Eventually, when built, the Standard Fives were more modern and equally more powerful than the Black Fives. But with only 172 of them built, Richard and Roger would emphasize that their strength in numbers made them better engines. Terry begged to differ, but with only one of him and two of them, it seemed to make no difference, and he would just ignore them. Richard and Roger were twins, but they weren't strictly identical. True, they were both Black Fives, but one was more different than the other. Richard was built with a more forward top feed and had a slightly longer wheelbase, whilst Roger was built like most of his class with his top feed closer to his dome. But the most notable difference was their livery. Roger had been given a new coat of paint with a new crest and no stripes. He didn't mind not having stripes. He just loved the fact he could stand out with his new livery. Richard was a little jealous. This was only because Roger loved to boast about it. "Don't I look splendid?" boasted Roger. "No," huffed Richard. "We don't look like twins anymore." "You never look like twins anyway," snorted William. "Perhaps a pair of unwelcome imbeciles." That was enough to cause a hasty argument
Oh
which
my
lasted long into
goodness.
the night. "I hope they're not going to be living here," whispered Ivett next morning. "They kept me awake all night," grumbled Robin. "I don't think I can take any more of this," sighed Terry wearily. "Don't worry, Terry," sympathized Ivett. "We're here for you, and I'm sure the shedmaster won't let anything bad happen to you." Robin agreed. They waited for a response off William, but he looked to be stuck in a trance, eyeing up the twins, seeing if they were up to no good. At the station, Jimmy was busy shunting coaches, all of which were heading towards holiday destinations. He'd been busy throughout the night and hadn't had time for a rest. It had been a very warm night with another steamy day beginning, but Jimmy soldiered on. Due to the hectic timetable, Jimmy hadn't been back to the sheds for over 2 days. He had no idea of the events that had happened in the yards, but what he did know was that Richard and Roger were the cause of many quarrels. Jimmy had just prepared a train when Roger rolled in. "Good morning," he called. Jimmy stuttered and unsure. Good morning." Roger attempted to make a conversation about the weather and how it was going to be another sizzling day. Jimmy only gave very short replies. Roger noticed this. "Jimmy, isn't it? Well, Jimmy, you've got nothing to be afraid of. You're one of us, and I respect that," he said grandly. Jimmy didn't really understand what "one of us" was. He thought he meant a steam engine. Just then Ivett sidled in. "You mean an LMS-built engine?" he interrupted. "Well, yes, indeed," said Roger. "These standard classes are copies. They will never be as great and influential as us." "You mean yourself?" Ivett wasn't fooled by Roger. "Take my advice, Jimmy. Don't listen to what these two have to say until they
This is cool.
realize that Terry is 10 times the engine they'll ever be."
And
Oh,
TL
turn
left.
leopard
Roger was
left.
surprised and departed with the train. Jimmy had never seen Ivett so defensive before. "We must look out for our friend," said Ivett. Jimmy agreed. As the sun rose in the sky,
Welcome
it
back,
began to
train
get
lover.
increasingly hotter.
Sorry about that. I
At the
disconnected.
junction, Terry warned Robin about the dangers in the heat. Just take care, the track might buckle. Thank you for the warning, smiled Robin, and he steamed away. Terry knew that under intense heat, railway lines can buckle and bend out of place. It is extremely dangerous, and all the engines had to take care. Just then, Roger wished to a stop. He immediately started throwing rude comments at Terry. And here is the copycat built by a failure of a railway, he sniffed. Terry wished him angrily. Standing around because it's too hot, dear, oh dear, not a very efficient steam engine, are you? Roger smiled triumphantly. You've got to go slowly in case the track breaks, advised Terry. You're just trying to make me late out of spite, snorted Roger. Track breaking indeed, have you heard? The guard blew his whistle, and Roger raced away feeling very clever. Pah! Grunted Terry, and he too left with his train.
This series is really good.
Yeah.
Recommended to you all.
Meanwhile,
Oh,
Richard was grumbling
I
to
see that break,
himself.
man.
He was put on a goods train. He thought the only reason why he was on a goods train was because of his livery. It's not fair. Roger gets given a new coat of paint, and then he gets given an express train. Stop complaining, snapped his driver. It's far too hot to be dealing with this, so shut up. As Richard sulked, Roger flew past. Terry thinks he can order us about, ignore.
Who's watching the stream?
Someone's echoing.
That's train lover.
What is it?
There's an
I can
echo in
hear
the
an echo.
background.
Okay, hold on. Let's see if it is me.
Ah! Okay, there we go. It
Yeah.
stopped.
Yeah.
It stopped because you muted your mic. Wait, try again. Ah! Yeah, there's an
Yeah,
echo.
it's coming from you.
I'll keep my mic muted then.
Okay. Alright, let's continue.
Ignore him, he shouted. Richard heard but was too jealous to reply. Soon after, Terry steamed past. Don't forget to look at the track, he called out. Yeah, huffed Richard in a sarcastic manner. But it would have been better if he had listened to Terry. It hadn't been long since both trains went through when the signal changed. Richard had at last permission to set off. As he began to pick up speed down the main line, the driver noticed something ahead. What's that? He asked the fireman. I can't tell, he replied. The track's twisted. Stop! Cried Richard. At the speed Richard had been travelling, it was impossible to stop in time. When the driver and fireman inspected their engine, it was obvious the sun had bent the rails. They noticed that Richard's bogies were badly damaged too. As the guard went to warn the signalman and go for help, William went past. Oh, please, help me, pleaded Richard. Certainly not, huffed William. Then Ivett went past. Please help, begged Richard. I'm sorry, I can't, said Ivett sadly. Richard felt very glum. He soon wondered why no one would help him, and then the penny dropped. He thought of how horrid he and Roger had been to Terry. We're bullies, he said to himself. I don't deserve help. I should have listened to Terry, and I shouldn't have been so horrible. Richard felt very ashamed. Terry soon arrived with the breakdown crane. He said nothing as he set to work.
Hi, Nightcrawler.
They removed this bogey.
The shedmaster was waiting for them as they returned. Roger was pleased to see Richard was all right. Even so, Richard's bogie wheels had to be taken off. The shedmaster inspected the damage. Then he turned to the two black fives. He scolded them severely. "It has come to my attention that you have said terrible things to Terry. You have been truculent, impertinent, and very outspoken to all my engines. I do not like such rudely behaved locomotives in my sheds. I do understand that certain engines are not perfect or saints, but they are all well-mannered and always forgiving. I hope you realize how kind-hearted and friendly Terry is. He will never be a copy, and he will always be an engine in his own right. You will stay in the shed until you have seen sense." And with that, the shedmaster walked sternly away. After that, Richard and Roger never said anything out of line again. They mended their ways, and are indeed very friendly engines, if not cheeky. In a surprising turn of events, they now look up to Terry. That shows you, doesn't it?
That's good.
Yep. Really good, actually.
Building your online business?
No.
Shut up, ads!
Go to Wix.com and set up
No one gives a shit. Fuck you.
No. Go somewhere else. Wait. Oh, I forgot about this one. This one's really good.
Yeah.
Sunlight. Fred. Wait, which one is this? Oh, wait.
We're told that success
No one cares.
is all about
Stupid
making it on your own.
ads.
But the truth.
You're smelly, you're dirty, you're irritating, you're out of date. Richard and Den had not stopped arguing all morning. Den was in the yards helping the workmen to lay down a new siding. Den had unwisely started complaining about being at the steam sheds. Richard felt insulted. You're not welcome here, snorted Richard. There's nothing wrong with our sheds, it's you that's the problem. Den was needed elsewhere and sneered away. That evening, Richard told the other engines about Den. Oh, he's always been like that, explained Fred. I think it's turned more into an obsession to engines now. All diesels
Alright, I'm
can't
back.
like that, can they? Asked Roger. Richard was still, doing us a favour, and for no reason turns his nose up at our shed. Richard's safety valve began to shoot steam in the air. Just then, Arthur rolled in. He didn't seem to be his usual self. Fred was worried and asked if anything was wrong. It's just been a long day, and now I've got the sleeper train to take, sighed Arthur. But
Oh, he left.
Guys, we gotta keep the audience entertained.
Hey, your audio is fixed.
I guess I just
Never
had
mind.
to mute myself.
Never mind.
What the heck? I just realized. Where did Silver go?
No idea.
E2's in chat.
Okay, what do we do?
E2. So we're trying to mute for a bit. There's echo.
I am getting so sick of having to mute myself.
Oh my
I
god,
want to
E2.
Okay. Well, what are we gonna do to entertain the audience until Silver comes back?
I don't know, but E2's spamming Milwaukee Road.
E2, stop spamming the chat. God.
He just puts no.
Yeah! In all seriousness, though, what are we gonna do now?
Let's talk about things. Let's talk about like anything.
Okay. So, what do you want to talk about?
So, what's your favorite Blue Trimmer Friends model?
Like that is currently in the game.
Yeah, or like that is like being made.
Honestly, it has to be Bert and Dudley so far that are being made. Others, I don't know.
Mine is Hank and Hero.
Fairs. I think Silver's internet crapped itself or something.
Well, what are your thoughts on the new upcoming Tobias movie?
Awesome. And how much? We have 6 months till it comes out.
Yeah, at least he finally finished filming everything. He just needs to put all the clips together.
Yeah.
And oh yeah,
What do you guys What do you guys think about the rising popularity of the Lorax?
Oh no, E2, mic is echoey, but anyways. Wait, no, Tron you can.
Also, Train Lover, if
Wait,
your mic is echoey, if your mic is really that bad right now, Train Lover, you can always type it in
knows how to fix it.
in the stream chat.
E2 knows how to fix it.
Go to settings, TL.
Need to tell him all the steps.
He's telling him all the steps.
Here's how to score every penalty in FIFA 20.
Were you watching an ad?
No.
Okay.
Okay, how
Um,
about now?
Yeah, that's good now.
Hey. Yes, it's fixed.
Yeah, that's good now. Let's
Is
go.
there an echo now?
No.
Nope.
Thank the Lord.
Okay, now as I was saying, what do you guys think of the rising popularity of the Lorax?
That's a good question. I don't know.
It's decent, I guess.
Because I noticed I've been seeing it everywhere, and when it first came out, it was considered the most hated movie ever, and nobody was talked about it until that song "Biggering" came out, and now it's popular
Biggering?
everywhere. The song "Biggering."
Make a more.
I must keep biggering.
Oh god.
Yeah,
What
Silver's
the
back.
hell? Where did you go?
We had to entertain the audience. Well, we only have
Where
one
the
audience
hell
member,
did
and
you
that is
go,
Night
man?
Stalker. No, Night Killer. Night Killer.
Also,
Night
E2
Stalker.
is in the backstage.
Yeah, he wants to come in. He won't stop typing Milwaukee Road.
He was spamming
I
the
mean,
fucking
I'm not
chat.
bothered.
Oh,
Yeah, but spamming it.
Train Lover, Night Killer just said hey to the Night Stalker comment you made on him.
Please don't kill me.
Hi.
E2 wants to get in here.
Yeah,
Let
but
him
he
in.
has to stop
Let
spamming
him in.
first.
Let him in.
The Milwaukee Road.
Don't. Oh.
Shame on you.
You know what? You get a good spot at the bottom.
Well, hey, at least I'm not the only one who's at the bottom.
Shut up.
Oh yeah, Silver, I got my mic fixed thanks to E2. I got my
See,
mic.
I help people. Well, yeah, I do. Because reasons.
Ooh, we got episode 17.
Let's go.
Episode 69.
Wow.
Imagine episode 17 was Engine 17.
Oh.
Wait, hold
Shed
on.
17? You mean Shed 17?
Fuck no.
Alright, never mind. Let's continue, people.
James. They checked him over, and with a hoot of the whistle, Arthur crawled out of the sheds.
That's Murdoch's
Now
whistle.
that's commitment to the job, puffed Richard. I bet
No
Den
fourth wall
doesn't know what
breaks.
proper hard work means. But his comment fell on deaf ears as everyone, trying to avoid having a debate, quickly fell asleep.
How many
The
episodes,
next day,
episodes are
Den was
there
back
in
at the
this
sheds.
series?
This time round he had a small
Let me
crane to
check.
marshal around the yards for the workmen. It had been brought over from the goods yard and Den had to dart across the main line to get it, as though not to block traffic. He was busy boasting at how up-to-date and modern he was. More advanced engines get given hard jobs, he announced.
There's 44.
Richard let off steam crossly.
Jesus
But to add
Christ, are we
insult
gonna
to
watch
injury,
all of them?
Fred was out of action.
Yeah.
He
Yep.
needed retubing.
No.
Past your sell-by date, old-timer, sniggered Dem. Who do you think you are? Richard grunted. Before Richard could say anything else, Roger limped into the sheds. What's happened to you? Asked Richard. Roger seemed a little embarrassed. I dropped me fire. Den rudely laughed at the situation. A bit of hard work and you all start falling apart. Richard was furious. He wanted to tell Den all about Arthur and what hard work really was. Haven't you got any horses to round up? Puffed Fred sweetly. Now it was Den's turn to be embarrassed and he scurried away.
Damn.
Fred chuckled, but Richard was
Wow.
determined to pay Den out.
This is why Fred is one of the best characters of this series.
You're
I
not
know.
wrong there, man.
As Richard backed onto his passenger train, Arthur was ready to depart with Roger's passenger train. He put on a brave face as he steamed away. Richard was in awe over the Royal Scot. He just never seems to stop, said Richard in admiration. I hope he gets a rest soon, sighed Jimmy. He's got to take the sleeper train again tonight. Richard was
Sleep.
amazed. He soon told Jimmy all about Den. If Den did all the work Arthur had to do, then perhaps he wouldn't have any time to be so rude to us, Jimmy puffed. Richard agreed as he left with his train. Late that afternoon, Richard arrived on shed. Arthur was preparing to leave again. All this running around can't be good for you, said Richard, concerned. Oh, not to worry, smiled Arthur. One more journey, and then another engine will take over the train. Then I can have a nice long rest. The engines were glad to hear the news, and Arthur cheerfully left to collect his train. By now, the workmen had finished laying the new siding and were packing up their tools ready for home. Den was
They have a
starting to feel a
crane.
little unwell, but he didn't want to show it in front of the steam engines, and certainly not in front of Richard. With Den working in the goods yard, then sprinting across the main line to help at the sheds, it had all taken its toll on his engine. The driver seemed concerned, but Den was conceited. I can manage, he growled. The driver scratched his head. Well, I'll have to look at your engine when we get back to the yards. And with that, Den spluttered away. However, Richard had seen everything.
Oh,
He
TL's back.
grinned
He's in
cheekily.
backstage.
Better be prepared for rescue duty, he said to
E2, stop
himself.
spamming the chat, please.
I only said it once. That's not
A few
spamming.
moments later came the call that Den had broken down on the main line. Immediately, Richard took up the call and set off to the rescue. But when he arrived at the scene, Richard was in for a surprise. There was Arthur slowly approaching Den in the works train. It's all right, called Richard. I'll do it. Oh, no trouble at all, replied Arthur. Den said
Silver?
nothing as Arthur, with his train, pushed Den on ahead. When Richard had turned round, he found Den in the works train in the small siding next to the main line. The workmen were looking over his engine. That won't take too long to fix, said a workman, but it'll be out of service for a few days. Den was sat sulking. He knew Richard was desperate to gloat and tease him, but surprisingly, Richard resisted the temptation. Now that is what hard work means, he murmured, and that was all Richard said. When Richard returned home, he told the other engines what had happened. Everyone
There's an
found the
INF.
funny side of Den's comeuppance. It serves him right, chuckled Jimmy. He'll never learn.
Just
His very
realized
words. A bit of hard work and they all start falling apart, teased Roger. Well done to Arthur, though, puffed Fred. He truly is an inspiration and an example to us all. Richard smiled proudly. He couldn't have put it better himself.
Awesome.
Skip the ad.
Oh no, we're trying to look up.
Oh yeah, silver train lovers are backstage.
I don't see
You don't see
Left. Well, we left. Did he leave?
Oh,
I don't know,
he had to
probably.
go He had to go because it was Father's Day.
Oh,
'Cause it's,
Oh,
well.
right.
yeah, that's a good reason. Anyways, continue.
Oh well. Oh well.
Oh, this is where we get our second new diesel engine.
I'm sorry.
This is where we got our second new
It was a
diesel
dark and
engine.
gloomy night at the sheds. Ivat rolled in as silently as he could so not to disturb the other engines. He had been delayed to let the sleeper train overtake him, which in turn had been stopped by broken signals. It had just been one of those days. Ivat was worn out, but alert. He wasn't afraid of the dark, but more afraid of what was in the dark. He never liked running passenger trains in the winter months. With so little light, it was inevitable that trains would run when the sun went down. The paraffin lamps would do little to light the way, and sometimes Ivat felt as if he was running blind. But it was late summer, and Ivat was looking forward to the sun rising early again, and with it came daylight. As the driver and fireman were finishing off for the night, Ivat thought he heard something. It sounded like a growl. "Who's there?" asked Ivat. "It's us, you daft engine," chuckled the fireman. "Oh, sorry," said Ivat, a little confused. The driver backed Ivat into the shed, and the two men left. Ivat looked around the yards once more. There was nothing there. As he was about to close his eyes, the mysterious growl began again. Ivat looked around nervously.
Okay, you know what?
Almost at once, the shed lights began to flicker. Ivat gulped. He wanted to call for his driver and fireman, but his throat went dry, and he couldn't say anything. Suddenly the floodlights went off, and Ivat was in total darkness. But still, the strange noise continued. "Hello," squeaked Ivat.
Oh my god.
The growls turned into a roar, and slithering past Ivat were two deep red eyes. Ivat held his breath and didn't say a word until they disappeared into the darkness. When the sun rose the next morning, Ivat was still on his guard. He hadn't slept a wink throughout the night. Ivat wanted to tell the other engines, but he was worried they'd all laugh at him. He knew all about ghost stories and supernatural occurrences that happened in the dead of night on the railways. All were told by old engines and veteran engine crews. But Ivat couldn't put his buffers on it. It wasn't a ghost he saw. It was very much alive. As the engines began leaving for work, Ivat felt very skittish. "Poor Ivat, you look like you've seen a ghost," teased Terry. "Oh, no, nothing of the sort," stuttered Ivat, and he quickly raced away. "He's in a hurry," puffed Richard. "Must be eager to
Yes.
work." But Robin wasn't
I got me
convinced
some
and followed
Takis.
his friend to the station.
Oh, nice.
When he
I
got
have
there,
Takis with me as
Ivat
well.
Pickle
was nowhere to be
Takis.
seen, and Robin began to worry.
What flavor?
That evening,
Pickle.
Ivat sat in the sheds alone, trying desperately.
Is
Pickle.
nacho chicken.
Pickle. Okay,
I
pickle.
have blue heat. I have blue heat.
Nice.
Noise.
To go to sleep so not to see the dark figure in the night. Robin approached Ivat. "What's wrong, Ivat? Something's troubling you," he asked kindly. Ivat looked around to check no one else could hear him. "I saw a... Well, I don't know what it was, but it growled fiercely and had these awful red eyes," described Ivat. Robin was taken aback. "A monster!" he cried. "Shh!" hissed Ivat. But it was too late. Richard rolled in. He had heard everything. "A monster!" he exclaimed. "What a load of rubbish!" "It is a monster," huffed Ivat. "I saw it. It was very frightening. It made the lights flicker when it left." Richard just laughed. Ivat and Robin just ignored him. It wasn't long before Roger knew too. The twins began scaring the two engines with ghost stories. "You know what it really is," sniggered Roger. "It's the ghost of the cleaner that worked at this very engine shed." Robin
How would
gulped.
you know? You
The
weren't even
cleaner
at
was
Houston
made to
around
do
the time.
night shifts at the shed on his own during the war. He used to get very cross when engines returned home very late. The crews would sneak off home and he would have to clean and maintain the engines. He was a very grumpy man due to lack of sleep, and it played tricks of his judgment. One night during a blackout, an engine returned home late as the crew slipped away. The fireman hadn't left the brake on properly. The cleaner didn't bother to look if the line was safe. The engine rolled towards him and crushed him. Robin was horrified. He still gets angry at engines that arrive late and growls at them. He gets so angry, his eyes glow red. He keeps engines awake at night, so when they're exhausted in the daytime, they're more likely to have an accident. That's how he gets his revenge, finished Roger. Roger's tale wasn't true, of course, and Ivor knew that. He'd been at the sheds longer than Roger, and there was never talk about a ghost haunting the yards. Ivor just ignored the story, but Robin and even Richard did believe in the tale and were spooked. Robin, with a runaway imagination, couldn't stop thinking of what Roger had said. Take no notice, soothed Ivor. Even I'm not scared by that pathetic story. But how do you know if it's not the cleaner? Questioned Robin. Ivor couldn't prove it, but still felt a little nervous to see if the red eyes would return.
I mean, just ask someone who's been at the sheds the longest.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean,
That's what
like
I was going
Jimmy,
to
for
say.
example. Heck, you can even ask
Yeah.
William.
Precisely.
Exactly.
Anyways, let's continue.
Actually, no. That better idea. Ask Fred.
Oh, yeah.
Later that night, when the engines were fast asleep, the growl returned.
Also, how do they not know it's a diesel?
Plot convenience.
Meh,
Dodge.
I'll go with that. What?
Dodge.
Dodge is not here though.
I know he's
Oh.
not, but he is. But
Robin
yes.
immediately awoke. Hivert! Hivert, it's here! He whispered. The two engines watched as the elusive figure slipped away into the night. Robin was beyond
Yeah,
words.
honestly, this is my least favorite
Ivor, on the
episode
other
of Jimmy
hand,
the
wasn't as
JT.
scared as he had been the night before. There must be an explanation to all this, he
I mean,
said
hey,
to
at least
himself.
it's an episode, though.
The next morning, Ivor challenged Roger's
Yeah, I'll give
ghost
it that.
story. He explained no one returned home late, but his theory was pushed aside when Roger pointed out that William had returned late. I was delayed to let the sleeper train depart, explained William. See, it is true, said Roger smugly. Richard felt very shaken up with the facts and darted away to the goods yard. You don't believe that tall tale, snorted William. No, I don't, puffed Ivor. But there was something last night, and I'm going to find out what.
It's a bloody diesel.
Exactly.
blithering
It's
idiots.
the new
Ivor
character.
was looking
Well,
for
they're
Susan.
blithering
Seemingly, a train
idiots.
departed
There
on
There
its
she
own.
is. It's her.
Again, Ivor heard the familiar growl he heard at the sheds.
Well, they're blithering
In the
idiots,
distance
that's
was
what.
a horn.
Oh, there's
Ivor
Arthur.
smiled to himself. Just then Arthur rolled in. Arthur had been away for a while, and Ivor was glad to see him. Where have you been? Asked Ivor. Oh, I was away at cruise sheds, my dear boy, explained Arthur. I've been palling the sleeper train for a couple of nights. Tiring work it is. Fortunately, they're testing a new locomotive on the sleeper.
I like Arthur. He sounds like a very calm and interesting engine.
Yeah, he's a gentle
Indeed.
giant.
Satan. Nah.
No,
He
he's
is-
not Satan, Edo.
Oh, so you mean Dodge? Isn't Dodge say Satan?
No, that goes to Ben.
Sleeper train, so it gave me the
Can we stop
opportunity
saying jokes
to
and
have a
continue?
nice long rest.
No.
Ivor bubbled
You
with
don't
excitement.
get out to
He
speak.
was one step closer to solving the mystery. And does this engine use our sheds at night? Quizzed Ivor. Oh, of course, said Arthur. In fact, you just missed her. Lovely diesel locomotive she is. If all goes well,
This
she may
diesel
be a
locomotive.
resident at our sheds. Ivor cheered to himself. So that's what's making the growling sounds in the red eyes. Arthur was puzzled, but Ivor explained everything. Ivor made him promise not to tell anyone. The twins would be in for a surprise. That night, the engines were winding down and starting to relax. Just then Richard clanked in. He was still wondering about the ghost. Where's Roger? Quivered Richard. Ivor chuckled. Oh, he's late, and you can bet on it the ghost won't like that. As Richard eased towards the sheds, there was a sudden growl, and a pair of red eyes glared at Richard. The ghost! He cried.
Rest in
Jimmy
peace,
bumped into Arthur.
bozo!
Both were very surprised. Out of the
Maybe
shed
shut
rolled
up.
a diesel engine, and there Arthur introduced her.
Thanks.
This is Barbara, announced Arthur. She has been running the sleeper train while I have been having a rest.
I thought her
so
name
was
was
that-
This
Bab.
is our Phantom of the Rails,
we'll
laughed
get to that.
Arvid. Oh, please, she smiled. Call me Babs. For
Oh,
a diesel, she's a classy bird, puffed Roger. Did you just call her a bird? Sniffed William. Yes. What are you, a ruffian? Babs laughed. I'm sorry I scared some of you, but now I'm going to be living here. I hope we'll all be friends. The engine smiled. There was nothing to be afraid of, though the twins did feel a little foolish. Ivet and
Ow.
Arthur were very pleased. They
ow,
knew Babs would
bozos.
be a welcome addition to the sheds.
But just wait until later on because there will be an actual ghost.
No.
How
Yeah.
to kill all mosquitoes
Wait.
in the area. in
No, we don't care about
seconds.
this.
This simple but brilliant trick you can do tonight to eliminate all mosquitoes around you.
Festive spirit. Oh, this is a Christmas episode. And P.S. This actually introduces another new character.
Holy crap.
It was only 3 days until Christmas. The engines are working hard during this busy time of year. Extra trains heading into the capital would always be full of last-minute Christmas shoppers.
Oh, you
and
mean
extended
London?
express services out of Euston would always be full to the brim of passengers travelling to see their
Euston.
loved ones. Happily, the weather had been kind to them.
Oh, there's
Yes,
Diesel.
it was
God-
still bitter
goddamn
cold, but no
LMS.
snow had fallen, and the only inconvenience that disrupted passengers
Wait.
travelling
How
to
did I
see
not
their
see
loved
Diesel
ones.
before?
Happily,
Yo, it's
Don't
the
move.
Diesel. Guys, look, it's the Diesel.
That's Boko.
It's the big
Are you
fat
delusional,
Diesel
sorry, bro,
himself.
Silver? Are you delusional? Because I don't know, bro. Are you
Shame on you.
It's the big
Because
black
I
weasel
see Diesel.
himself.
I don't see. On my screen, I see Diesel. Silver. So I don't know.
No, you said
That's because it
Diesel.
is
That's what
Diesel.
Dylan Ben called Boko.
The reason why I said Diesel because he's a Diesel. That's why. Supposed to be a joke.
Well, we don't know. Anyways, continue on.
the weather had been kind to them.
Yes,
Yes, it was still bitter cold, but no snow had fallen, and the
I
only
see the
inconvenience
Chetmaster.
that disrupted trains were frozen points. Jimmy loved the festive season. Everyone
Right,
seemed so
Diesel.
much more happier, and Jimmy would
Right,
always sing
Diesel.
joyfully as he
Fuck,
bustled
man.
around the station.
No.
The driver and fireman were pleased too. You've got a lovely fire to keep us warm, they chuckled. Jimmy looked up at the sky. I wonder if it'll snow, he said thoughtfully. Oh, I doubt it, said the driver. It'll be thick out in the countryside, but we never get proper snow in the capital. Jimmy sighed disappointingly, but quickly cheered up and regained his festive spirit.
Wow.
That is just so good.
Have you noticed that he's changed his
Maybe
whistle?
that sounds wrong.
E2, shut up.
Yay.
Mm-mm.
Anyways, what were you gonna say,
Yeah.
Silver?
What was-
Have you guys noticed that he changed his whistle from like season 15 to now?
Oh, yeah.
Episode
Wait,
Episode,
what was?
I mean.
Wait, season 15. What was the season 15 whistle?
not se- I meant episode 15.
Oh, episode 15. I
Jimmy.
might need to rewatch episode 15 so I can hear what that whistle sounded like.
But throughout the series, you can just hear that he changes his whistle.
Oh yeah,
Jimmy the
he
Jimmy.
does.
That evening, the engines felt the
That's
cold.
actually so
It's
good.
bitter
though.
cold tonight, chaps, puffed Fred.
Oh,
Poor, I hope the
I saw the
firelight
red
puts
light.
more coal on. I can hardly feel my wheels, shivered Robin. Jimmy
That reminds me of something. I can't feel
Say
my
the
wheels.
Scrapyards.
My boiler.
Basically,
The
it's
iron
sort of
works.
like
Anything. How do I get
The
out
iron
there?
works.
don't mention that word. It makes my wheels wobble.
Burn, baby, burn.
Jimmy once again looks up at the
They.
sky. Part of me it wishes it would be a
It
white
was a Rousey
Christmas.
Refuge
Maybe shut up.
reference to those who understand
Rubbish,
it.
hissed William. We don't want any of that snow.
No, I'm not.
Bad
I'm not saying
smart,
that. If I
Jimmy.
say that, I'm gonna get
Well, I
cancelled.
think if it did snow, it would be wonderful. Of course it wouldn't, grumbled William. We don't need any of that
That was the
snow to
worst.
delay us.
Never mind.
Tomorrow is the day before Christmas Eve, and this is when we are at our busiest. You keep your chimney out of the clouds and concentrate on your work. Well, you're a real Mr. Scrooge, sniffed Terry. I'm being realistic, retorted William. I'll be happy when Christmas is over. The engines grumbled over William's lack of festive spirit. Jimmy was the most disappointed and said nothing as he went to sleep.
I mean, why does Christmas even matter to
The next
you
morning,
anyway?
Jimmy was hard at work. The subject of a white Christmas had been exhausted during the night, and Jimmy was far too busy to think about snow now. As he shunted William's commuter train, the station master walked up to Jimmy.
That track is not lined up with the playmat.
Wait. Oh yeah, no, it's not.
Wrong though.
His cab. Sorry, lads, can you put the coaches on the other platform? I've got a special train coming in and we need to keep this platform free, he announced. Not a problem,
New
said
character.
the driver. But why did the coaches have to be moved? There's a circus train coming in, explained the station master. They were travelling by road, but half of their equipment and animals got stuck in the snow in the countryside. So since it's Christmas, British Railways has offered to take the rest of their entourage into London for free. Well, we'd better get a move on, exclaimed Jimmy. The coaches were moved to the next platform, and when William arrived to collect his train, he was told he had to wait until the circus train had arrived. Stupid circus, snorted William. Having to wait for it, my passengers will be delayed. Oh, stop moaning, huffed Jimmy. Anyway, I've never seen a circus train before. At that moment, the signal changed, and in the distance, an engine's whistle could be heard. Jimmy and William were in for a surprise. There, steaming towards them, was a Somerset and Dorset 7F loco. Well, the circus will really be rolling into town if that's a 7F I see.
That must have been one of Ivan's old friends.
Sure enough it was, and the engine whistled happily as it
EMD.
steamed into the station.
Probably.
Presently, the guard blew his whistle.
The
and William
EMD.
puffed away. Jimmy was intrigued to know why a 7F was all the way in London. He'd never seen an engine quite like this before, but had heard about the class thanks to Ivett. The engine reversed through the station and smiled cheerfully at Jimmy. Hello there, called the engine. My name's Rob. What's yours? I'm
Satan.
Jimmy. You're a long way from home, he teased. That I am. It's a long story. I save it for later, interrupted his driver. You need a rest at the shed to be prepared for tomorrow. I'll catch you at the shed, smiled Rob. And with that, Rob steamed away to the
Catch you at Satan Station.
Jimmy was rather confused at what had just happened, but he
you at
knew that
Segregation
Ivett would be
Station.
very pleased to see Rob at the sheds.
How did you get there quickly, William?
Jimmy was right. Ivett was over the moon that an engine from his old home had arrived. They knew each other well and reminisced about the past. Richard and Roger interrupted the conversation. Excuse me, cut in Richard, but we're all dying to know why you're here. 7Fs don't venture to London just when they feel like it, added Roger. Rob smiled. Well, it's a long story, he began. I was ordered to assist the Pines Express out of Bath as the usual 2P that helped with the train had failed. When we reached the station where I'd be uncoupled, the 9F pulling the train failed too. I had to carry on pulling the train. Luckily, a Black 5 was able to take over halfway. But don't the Pines Express keep to Manchester? Asked Terry. Indeed it does, answered Rob. As I was making my way back to Bath, I was rerouted to help rescue the circus. They needed to go to London, so in the spirit of Christmas I happily pulled the train. Well, that was very kind of you, said Fred. Speaking of Christmas, this place could do with being livened up, Rob teased. We like it this way, snapped William. Speak for yourself, huffed the twins. In my shed, we have a Christmas tree, and the drivers play records and have the radio blasting out around the shed, said Rob. Oh, we did used to have a Christmas tree, explained Jimmy. But William Spark set it alight.
I'll be right back, guys.
We can't have one. It wasn't intentional, yeah, if you say so.
I'm
Just at that moment, the shedmaster arrived.
I can pay your electric bill.
I have
I bet it
spoken
was
with control,
intentional.
and they say they can get you back to Bath on a freight train tomorrow, he said. Ivor looked upset. So you can't stay for Christmas, he sighed. I'm afraid Rob can't. The S&D need him back. Excuse me, sir, asked Rob. Do you have a radio? The shedmaster was surprised, but smiled. Yes, I do, he replied. Why? Well, sir, I think Christmas has bypassed the shed, and I'm sure everyone would appreciate a little sing-along, puffed Rob innocently. The engines whistled excitedly. Oh, please, sir, they cried. The shedmaster couldn't say no to their pleading faces. He fetched the radio and placed it on a crate. As the music began, the engines began to sing. William grumbled to himself and went to sleep.
I think this is copyrighted.
Copyrighted. It's over. You must get copyrighted.
Day. Thank
Okay,
goodness
better.
it's Christmas Eve, grunted William. Not long now until it's all over. 'Tis the season to be jolly means nothing to you, does it? Teased Rob. William pretended he hadn't heard him and snorted away. He may seem like a Grinch, but he is a hard worker, said Jimmy. It's meant to be goodwill to all engines, puffed Rob. But he just takes the biscuit. Soon Jimmy's driver and fireman arrived and Jimmy had to leave. Take care on your journey back home, called Jimmy. Oh yes, and Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas to you too, Jimmy, replied Rob. With that, the tank engine steamed away. But later that afternoon, Jimmy was to meet the 7F loco again. Jimmy was bemused to see Rob reversing onto a passenger train. What are you doing here? Puffed Jimmy, perplexed. You should be on your way home. I'm stepping in for another engine, explained Rob. Can't let the passengers down. It is Christmas Eve after all. You've got a heart of gold, smiled Jimmy. The guard blew his whistle, and Rob departed with the train. It hadn't been long when William huffed in. He had finished all of his work and was looking forward to going to the sheds. Just then, the station master ran up to the engines. Rob is stuck on a hill, he exclaimed.
Locomotive,
came the blunt reply from the Stanier tank. The station master looked crossly at William. Rob's standing gear has failed. He's struggling to pull the train. We need you to go and give him a push.
locomotive track.
Certainly not, snapped William. I'm tired and I want to go home. Jimmy let off steam loudly. William, you should be ashamed of yourself. Think of all the passengers trapped on that train. Don't they deserve to go home too? I've had enough of your lack of Christmas spirit. Your sulking and complaining is ruining everyone's Christmas. Show at least some compassion for the passengers and help them get home for Christmas.
Nah.
William was speechless. If you don't show a will, you can expect to collect your own blooming coaches in future. Now get going.
Okay then,
William was so
and
gobsmacked by Jimmy's stern reaction.
Dang.
Sidled away to the rescue. He found Rob.
Carefully, too, or this might happen to you and Mr. Richards Railway.
He coupled up to the rear of the train.
my OC
with
is a
all his
shunter,
might,
so why?
pushed
So
the
why
train
not?
up the hill.
You can
It's even
take
harder
trains
They
from
arrived
here
at
and
the
there.
station. The passengers thanked
Yes,
the engines and
and?
their crews for bringing them home.
I
My
don't know.
purpose
Thank me,
is my
grinned
purpose
Rob.
is
Thank
shunting.
William.
So
William stayed silent.
Wait.
Back at the sheds, Rob was being given minor repairs. The shedmaster spoke to him. We've fixed your sanding gear, but unfortunately now services have...
huh?
Where was Diesel?
Do you
Go
mean?
back.
Oh, it was Diesel. He. Hang on.
Wait, go back to the station.
I can't pay electric bill. Yo, is that
see him.
Diesel?
Yeah, it's Diesel.
Yeah.
It's the
William.
Diesel.
William stayed silent. Back at the sheds, Rob was being given minor repairs. The shedmaster spoke to him. We've fixed your sanding gear, but unfortunately now services have stopped. You won't be able to make it back to Bath until after Boxing Day. Ivert was the most pleased by this news. He whistled excitedly. Rob laughed. That's fine by me, sir. I've got good company. The shedmaster looked at his engines. Victoria has given me some records for you to listen to. I'll go and fetch the turntable.
Oh,
wait a
no,
minute,
not
sir,
more
called
copyrighted
Tab.
songs.
What about William?
Oh, God.
Do you mind
Can't
if
pay
listening to
electric
music?
bill.
William looked across the yards. There was a
What
small
the fuck?
pause. Of course I don't mind, he puffed grandly. What change your
Am I
mind?
too
asked
loud or
Terry.
too?
William
I
looked
don't know.
at Jimmy, who smiled up at him.
Am I okay? So, I want to know who.
Well, no one likes a Scrooge at Christmas, sniffed William pompously.
Can none of y'all hear me? Because I want
As
to
the
know.
shedmaster brought the turntable out, Jimmy whispered to William.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Thank you,
All
William.
right.
Oh, here's the best
Merry
part.
Christmas. And for the
I
first
can't
time
pay
in
electric bill.
William smiled back.
What the
He
actual
changed his
fuck?
face for the first
I
time.
can't pay electric bill.
Huh.
He changed.
Merry
William
Christmas to you
changes his
too,
face for the
replied William
first
quietly.
time.
As the shipmaster
Wow.
and the crews left for home, and the first record began to play, the engines all
Now
began
bro's
to
fucking
sing.
smiling like
Indeed, it wasn't a white
life.
Christmas Jimmy had hoped for,
Life
but it was certainly
is
one
a
they'd
lot.
all remember. Merry Christmas, everyone!
No, get rid of this.
Yep, that is copyrighted as well, Silver. Sorry about that.
We do not own the song.
Dave, that won't change anything.
I know, I'm just saying.
Exactly.
We-
Oh, Babs the Brave. This one's about Babs.
Wait, give me a second. Again.
How long is it till the stream ends?
Well, we are
Babs
on
I
episode
ain't saying
20
it.
now.
was enjoying her stay in the sheds.
Yeah, we got like
She was polite, kind, and very well mannered.
30
She
more
easily made
episodes
friends
to
with all
go.
the engines. Jimmy enjoyed her company the most. She seemed to remind him of the Duchess. The engines are very fond of her,
Is that John?
but as ever, William was the last to accept her. He appreciated the work she did, but because she was a diesel engine, William felt she had much more to prove. As the weeks had passed earlier in the year, William felt extremely agitated and uncomfortable when Den was stick closely by her. It was the day after Boxing Day, and Rob was being prepared for his long journey back to Bath. The other engines were having their fires rebuilt, ready to return
Actually,
to
no, wait.
service.
1,
William
2,
was simmering
3,
quietly when Den slithered
4,
in.
5, 6,
And what
7,
are you
8,
doing
9,
here?
10,
snarled William.
11,
Having a rest, of course,
12,
said Den greasily.
13, 14,
You know full
15,
well that you
16,
don't rest
17,
here, retorted William.
18.
Den gave a smug smile. Well, now Babs is here. They're planning on building a fuel pump close by. So that means
24
we'll be
episodes.
seeing more of me, smirked Den, and inevitably more diesels. Rubbish, William hissed fiercely. There won't be any more diesels. Den's smirk grew bigger. Are you sure? Because right now they're building hundreds of Babs class, aren't they? William stopped hissing steam. He almost had a look of disbelief in his eyes. Are they? He asked. Well, yes, said Babs innocently. A lot
What
of my
class
class
is
is spread all
Babs
over the
again?
country. They call some of my cousins
Class
rats. What,
24.
because they're vermin? No, because they're everywhere. I don't know what's
Okay.
worse, grumbled
VR class
William.
24,
Den
I
began
think.
to snigger to
Alright, thank
himself.
you.
His smugness was too much for William to bear any longer, and so when his driver was ready, he snorted out of the yards.
Yep,
Babs
24.
suddenly realized she may have offended William. She looked at Den, who was still sniggering. Well, thank you very much, Den, snapped Babs. Den was caught out by surprise. You've made me look like an absolute fool in front of William. Steam engines are very proud locomotives, and none more so than William, she exclaimed. Steam engines need to know they're on the way out, grunted Den. You're giving us diesel engines a bad reputation. Now I can see why the shedmaster forbids you in coming here. Den said nothing, but still felt victorious as he scuttled away. Jimmy and Rob comforted Babs. Den's goal in life is to annoy us steam engines. William should know that by now, explained Jimmy. I wouldn't let any of them get you down, sweetheart, smiled Rob. Babs felt a little better and wished Rob a safe journey home as she too left to start work. The shedmaster soon arrived to inspect his engines. Did you have a nice Christmas, sir? Asked Jimmy. Oh, it were lovely, thank you. And I hope you enjoyed listening to those records, said the shedmaster. It was very kind of you, sir, grinned Rob. Ah, now, Rob, began the shedmaster. You'll be taking a small goods train back to Bath with you. Have a safe journey, and it's been a pleasure to meet you. Rob left to a chorus of whistles and steamed away to collect his train. Services were returning to normal, and the railway was once again bustling with activity. Robin was pulling the first passenger train of the day. As he steamed along the line, his driver felt a huge bump in the line. Oh, what was that? Exclaimed Robin. The fireman looked back and could see something peering under the rails. Something's not right, he announced wordily. We'll report it to the signalman at the next station. When they arrived, they told the signalman and the station master about the bump in the track. I saw something under the track, explained the fireman. Oh, but it could have been a loose sleeper. I'll telephone the track gang to look at the line, said the station master. The signalman came to a decision too. I'll put a danger signal up and slow the trains down. And that was that. The driver and fireman climbed back into Robin's cab. "We've done our good deed for the day," joked the driver. But Robin felt uneasy as he departed with his train. Robin had every right to feel uneasy. It hadn't been long when Rob came steaming along the same section of line. The driver acknowledged the danger signal and reduced speed. Suddenly there was a loud bang and Rob felt the rail jolt him sideways. The driver immediately stopped the train and the crew climbed down to inspect the line. They had only walked 2 wagons down the train when they leapt back in horror. There, sitting under the track, was an unexploded wartime bomb. "Is anything wrong?" questioned Rob. "You bet there is," quivered the fireman. The guard walked up the train. He asked the same question. The driver and fireman just pointed in sheer terror at the bomb under the train. When the guard noticed the device, he nearly ran for cover. "Don't you dare run off," snapped the driver. "We need to sort this out." "Right, lad, put your fire out before any sparks set that thing off." "What thing?" Rob was very puzzled. The fireman ran back to the cab and began to put out the fire. "What's going on?" "There's an old bomb under the train," shouted the fireman manically. "Just keep perfectly still." "A bomb?" shrieked Rob in alarm. Rob now felt very frightened and tried hard to stop himself shaking in fear. Then there was trouble. An engine's horn could be heard in the distance. The driver grabbed the guard and pushed him forwards. "For God's sake, stop that train," he cried. "The vibrations from that train could set this thing off. Let's just pray it isn't a passenger train." The guard raced down the line waving his red flag. Luckily, it wasn't a passenger train, and the driver saw the guard's red flag. Unfortunately for her, it was Babs who was pulling the train. The guard explained the situation to the crew of Babs's train. Babs's guard ran back to the signal box to get permission to retreat back to the station. When he returned, Babs felt very guilty for leaving Rob. "Don't worry," she called. "We're going back for help. Oh, please hurry," pleaded Rob. At the station, all trains had stopped. Terry stood in the other platform as Babs reversed in. "The police have been informed of the situation and the bomb disposal team will be on the scene in half an hour," explained the station master. Babs disapproved of this. "Half an hour?" she spluttered. "Rob and his crew might not have half an hour. They'll have to sit tight. It's the best we can do," replied the station master. "We can't just leave them there. We need to do something now." "And what do you suggest?" grumbled the signalman. "We go back and rescue them. 3 men and Rob are in grave danger," said Babs bravely. "Love, you've got some guts," puffed Terry admiringly. "Come on," encouraged the driver. "Babs is right. We must rescue them. We must."
Lucky road.
And almost forgetting the life-threatening situation that lay before them, Babs, with her driver, guard, and the station master, set out for the rescue. Terry was left in admiration. "Oh, I hope they're going to be all right," he sighed with concern. Meanwhile, Rob and his crew could do no more. The crew were taking cover in a ditch. Rob was petrified and gulped nervously at the thought of being blown to smithereens. Then in the distance, he could see Babs. She rolled forwards at a snail's pace towards Rob. She tooted a warning. Rob's driver and fireman and guard ran to the diesel engine's cab. The station master explained the situation. "It's going to be risky, but if we're careful, we can get your loco back to the station safely." Babs concentrated on buffering up to Rob gently so not to detonate the bomb. She crawled towards Rob and carefully buffered up. Then the driver and fireman tiptoed towards the bomb and uncoupled the first few wagons that had already ridden over the device. When given the all clear, Babs slowly pulled Rob
didn't
clear
they
of
go
the
on the other side of the
explosive.
bomb? I will never find
Everyone
out.
nervously waited with bated breath as they rolled cautiously away.
Wait, what'd you say, Oliver?
Why didn't they go on the other side of the goods train so they will not go near the bomb? I will never find out.
Yeah, it's kind of strange though, isn't it?
We'll never find out.
None of us will, actually.
There was a great sigh of relief when Babs returned with Rob safely at the station. Rob's crew shook hands appreciatively with Babs' crew. "Thank goodness you've arrived in one piece," teased Terry. Suddenly,
My fucking ears!
Oh, crap!
the ground shook violently.
Oh my god!
Oh
The
my
realization
god.
of what could have happened to Rob and his
My
crew hit them
fucking
hard. All was
eardrums.
solemnly quiet until the police arrived.
Wait, hold on.
That's a
What did they say?
pain.
Repeat that again.
When at last Rob had permission to leave for home,
What was
he
it?
was most grateful towards Babs.
Go back to the station scene. I couldn't hear that.
The ground shook violently as evidently the bomb had exploded. The realization of what could have happened to Rob and his crew hit them hard, and all was solemnly quiet until the police arrived. When at last Rob had permission to leave for home, he was most grateful towards Babs.
Who was the one that put the
You
bomb
came
there in
back
the
for me and
first place?
saved mine and my crew's.
That's what I'm asking. Like,
Same. Like,
And isn't it
No
technically
wonder-
Robin and his crew's fault? Because, like, weren't they the first ones to hit the bomb?
well, no, they didn't know that the bomb was there.
Oh, yeah, they couldn't see it.
so it's not really their. So it's not really their fault, honestly.
Yeah. It was
Yeah,
the
they wouldn't have
person's
known it
fault
was
for
there.
placing the bomb there.
Yeah, they wouldn't have any clue if it was there or not.
Yeah. So it
We've
was
lied,
whoever's
he said with
fault
deep
that
feeling.
placed
there
the
a-
bomb there.
Anything
Yeah.
I can do to
Yeah.
repay you.
Alright, let's continue.
Babs smiled. Nothing at all, she said. But if this has taught us anything, it's taught us to appreciate life and live it to our full potential. Rob couldn't agree more, and with that, Rob finally made his way home.
Derby.
Babs returned to the sheds as a heroine and was the talk of the yards all night long. The next day she even made headline news. It read, "Wartime bomb nearly sends steam train up in smoke." How very droll, grumbled William. Well, at least Rob's all right.
Oh, shut up,
puffed Terry.
William.
I mean, imagine spending Christmas with us and then nearly getting yourself blown up. The engines couldn't help but
Get yourself
giggle.
ballooned up.
The shedmaster arrived. He congratulated Babs on her courageous efforts, and under instructions of the railway board, Babs was to be treated to a new coat of paint. "Oh, thank you, sir," she beamed happily. The engines gave Babs 3 cheers, and after that William whispered to Babs, "I'm sorry I got so easily offended. I should have known by now that Den is only out to cause trouble." "That's all right," replied Babs.
Yeah, well,
"I'll keep Den in order.
Den.
You know,
He does
Babs,
what Den
for a
does, and he
deal,
doesn't care.
you're the good sort. Kind, gallant, and always forgiving." That, from William the Stanier Tank, is high praise indeed.
No!
No.
Can you come pick me up?
No,
No,
sorry, on my
screw
truck.
it.
Come on,
Walk.
two
No problem.
ads.
I'll text you the digital key to my Seltos.
Learn to walk.
Live life to its fullest in the new Kia Seltos. Kia, movement that
We don't
inspires.
care. And okay, good.
Come
Good.
on.
This one you can skip.
Goodbye.
Thank you. January Blues.
Alright, so we're gonna go to January Blues. So today I think we will finish at episode 25.
Oh,
Episode
okay.
25, alright, so basically 4 more episodes left.
And then we'll start at 26 leading up to 35.
How much
And
episodes is
then-
there in total again?
44.
45, I think. Oh, 44.
No, 44.
There we go.
Oh, 44. Yeah, that's what I said.
So yeah.
So yeah, we will do that.
Okay.
Ivett was suffering from the January blues. For reasons he couldn't explain, he felt sad and unsatisfied. Everyone else seemed to be much more cheerful as they went about their work. Ivett was confused, so he confided with his driver. "I don't know what's wrong with me," he muttered. "Am I ill?" The driver thought about the situation as he went about oiling Ivett. I think after Christmas it's all become an anticlimax, diagnosed the driver. The short days and gloomy weather doesn't help either. It's probably the January blues. People suffer from this sort of thing too. Ivett sighed.
I've never heard of it.
You don't think I'm what they call depressed? Bless you, no, laughed the driver. But I must admit you could do with being cheered up. As the driver climbed into his cab, Fred steamed in with a small crane. He stopped next to the signal box. It was a surprise to see Fred at the station. He never usually went near it. Being a freight engine, he would usually be found in the yards collecting wagons. What are you doing here? Asked Ivett. I'm bringing in this small crane to help replace some broken glass at the top of the station canopy, explained Fred. Really, Den should be doing this. Why? Well, because he's a diesel, he can roll under the canopy without shooting steam at the broken glass.
For some reason, I really wanted him to say because he's a dick.
I have to turn round and leave the train here for Jimmy. Ivett watched the operation. Fred rolled over the point and stopped next to the train. Then Jimmy arrived to shunt the train under the canopy. He had to stop precisely before entering the station canopy. It didn't take long for Ivett to suddenly feel low again, and he took a deep breath. Fred and Jimmy noticed something was wrong. Ivett told them, but still didn't feel any better for telling his friends. Last time you felt miserable, you were sent to the Somerset and Dorset region, remarked Jimmy. Indeed, and that was a lovely surprise, and meeting Rob was even better. But this is different, and I can't explain why, Ivett wondered. My driver says I need cheering up. Fred smiled at the large tank engine. Don't you worry, Ivett, he chortled. There's never a dull moment on this stretch of line. Something is bound to come along and brighten your day. Just then Fred was signalled to leave, and Jimmy shortly followed to collect some coaches. Ivett still felt glum, but thought about what Fred had said as he departed with his train.
I'm surprised.
Later that afternoon, Ivett was back at the station ready to collect his passengers. The station soon became very busy, and the workmen found replacing the glass in the canopy a lot harder than they first thought. The decision was made to carry out the repairs in the evening when the station would be quieter. Den soon arrived to take the train away. As he coupled up to the wagons, Arthur steamed into the station to collect his train. He was preparing to leave with the Royal Scot when he noticed Ivett's downcast expression. Cheer up, old boy, smiled Arthur. That's the problem, I can't, murmured Ivett. At that moment, the shedmaster's daughter, Vicky, appeared on the platform. Cor, you look a sight for sore eyes, exclaimed Vicky. Me dad been horrible to you or summat? No, not at all. I'm just feeling blue. Vicky glanced an understandable look at Ivett. We all get like that sometimes, she announced. I'm going off to cheer up my nan. She's come out of hospital, so I'm going to look after her. Oh, how kind of you, said Arthur grandly. I know, me nan's nice. I love her to bits. Whenever I visit her, she lets me watch Doctor Who on the television.
She sounds Irish.
Ivett and Arthur looked at each other in a confused manner.
You're not wrong.
It's the Doctor Who thing that made me laugh.
Bruh.
What do you mean? That's funny.
No, I know.
It
is. I know that, man.
Oh, okay,
I just love
okay.
the sound of the accent the Irish people make.
Same, it's kind of
Oh, I
funny to me
know.
for some reason.
That's something we can both agree on. Alright.
Doctor Who? Quizzed Ivett. Yeah, that's right, replied Vicky cheerfully. No, Doctor Who. Yeah, that's his name. What's his name? You just said it, Doctor Who. Well, how can I? You haven't told me his name. Yes, I have. You...
Oh my god.
It's Doctor Who!
It's just Doctor Who! That's the name!
That's who's name!
He's a blithering idiot!
I'm sorry. Maybe. I forgot. That's who's name.
Oh my god.
That's who's
That's
name.
That's his name, Ivett. Come on.
Exactly!
man's
Come
name.
on, man!
You never heard of Doctor Who?
said Doctor, and then asked me who he was.
Shame on
No, I didn't.
him.
Yes, you did. No, I. Vicky quickly cut short the conversation. Anyway, he's a Time Lord that travels in a police telephone box that's called a TARDIS and fights aliens and monsters, explained Vicky. A Time Lord, stuttered Arthur. A police telephone
Have you never
box,
even seen
spluttered
Doctor Who
Ivet.
before?
Arthur couldn't help but laugh at what
I don't
Vicky had
think they
described to
have.
him. Well, I can
Neither
imagine what
engines.
William would say. What a load of rubbish, he chuckled. It's very popular, continued Vicky. My favourite is when the Doctor battles against the Daleks. Again, the engines looked in bewilderment at Vicky. Dan, who had been eavesdropping on the engine's conversation, couldn't help but use this to his advantage for causing mischief. They're aliens that look like
Piss off, Dan!
boxes with bolts on. They slide around and have a thin nozzle that sticks out, said Vicky, and they growl, exterminate and shoot people. Den slithered up. They sound perfect for getting rid of you steam engines, sniggered Den. Vicky pointed and laughed at the shunter. You look just like one, you being a box with your big nose sticking out. Den felt insulted. He growled his engine and roared away. Vicky was still giggling when she boarded Arthur's train. Ivet had perked up, but was still feeling sorry for himself. Not to worry, my dear fellow. You'll be back to your normal self soon, puffed Arthur kindly. Ivet hoped he was right. Arthur wished him well, the guard blew his whistle, and the Royal Scot departed. Ivet was scheduled to take the evening stopping train from Euston. It was very dark, and no
Everything's
sooner had
red.
Jimmy left for the sheds, the station was eerily quiet. Ivet began to think about what Fred and
That's just
Arthur had
because
said
of the
to him,
lighting.
but that was overcome with the curiosity of
Oh,
Vicky's
yeah.
description of a Dalek. He became quite distracted at the thought of an alien invading the railways. Presently, Fred reversed into the platform with a van full of tools and equipment as the workmen began to congregate behind the engines whilst waiting for their crane. Do you feel any better? Asked Fred politely. No, not yet. Nothing has happened to kick me out of this mood, puffed Ivet sadly. The
I
signal
can kick you out
changed,
of it.
and in the distance the engines could hear a voice. Exterminate! 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 Can you hear that? Cried Fred. The shape of a thin box with something pointing out approached the station through the darkness. It's a Dalek! Exclaimed Ivet. What's a Dalek? And before Ivet could explain, Den appeared out with a small crane in front of him. Ivet suddenly burst into a fit of laughter. Den felt a little disheartened. It wasn't the reaction he was expecting. Fred couldn't help but laugh too, and even Den was heard to give a quiet chuckle. Oh, guffared Ivet. Oh, Den, you've made my day. But I thought you'd be scared of a Dalek, oiled Den. Ivet's smile grew bigger, and when it was time for him to leave, he was still laughing as he departed. What was all that about? Asked Den in a perplexed state. Fred had no idea what Den had done, nor did he know what a Dalek was, but he was happy to see Ivet smiling again. Thank you, Den, grinned Fred. I think you've cured Ivet's January blues. Den stuttered and unsure. You're welcome. And with that, Fred steamed cheerfully to the sheds.
Den finally did something useful.
Instead of being an old buzzbox on wheels.
Yeah.
But still, though, like, his plan backfired and it was funny.
Yeah, and it backfired in a really good way.
It really did. Alright. Episode 2, please.
Next episode.
I actually switched from Chrome to Opera
I
GX a
don't
while ago.
care.
Oh my god, no
because I
more
was so
ads.
tired of Chrome being the absurd resource hog that it is
don't
and
care.
performing
I stick with Chrome and that's it.
Roger's curse.
Reliable. Richard and Roger, the Black Five twins, are the most reliable pair of engines in the sheds. They can tackle any train they are given with ease, and have earned the reputation of being able to go anywhere. They are very close too, and look out for one another.
Wait, which episode is engine 17
Okay, so
again?
let's see. The one on the The one on the right is Richard, and the one on the left is Roger.
Yeah, I know, but like, which episode is Engine 17?
Hold on, let me check. Cause like, I'm pretty sure Engine 17 is here somewhere.
Is it this one or the
Jimmy
next
the
one?
Ginsey. Let's see the playlist. It is Engine 17 is the episode is Engine 17
Where were we?
is episode 40?
What now?
Well, I be damned.
So we're
What
not
happened?
at Engine 17 yet. This is episode 22.
Oh.
But we're getting there.
They had been through many trials and tribulations together, but one incident still haunts the two engines. Whenever asked about their past, they always give the same answer. We were built together, lived together, and grew up together, they would say. But there was more to their history than what was really known.
Okay.
Unbeknownst to the other engines, the crews had taken a dislike to Roger. Only Richard knew of this and was persistent in making his twin feel better and blaming this unusual behavior on what must be something mechanically wrong. But I feel fine, muttered Roger. It has to be a mechanical issue, replied Richard. Roger looked solemnly at his twin. He stuttered nervously. You don't think it's because of that? No, snapped Richard. It's not because of that. You start bringing that up again, things will begin to go wrong. Richard snorted away, leaving Roger deep in his thoughts, unaware that Robin had seen everything. Robin told the other engines, and soon the strange behavior was noticed. The crews would favor Richard over Roger. Terry knew that Roger was scheduled to leave the sheds before he went to pull the shamrock, but instead, Richard would take Roger's train, and the poor Black Five would be sat on his lonesome in the sheds all day. What are you two playing at? Asked Terry one day. Nothing. Roger just isn't feeling well, huffed Richard hastily. Roger said nothing. Rubbish, snorted William. He's perfectly fine. You're just lazy. William, shut up, burst out Roger. I'm not in the mood to deal with you now. The shed suddenly fell into silence, and the engines decided not to venture further into the discussion. Somehow, it didn't feel appropriate.
Why is this just
But the
happening
problem didn't go
now?
away,
That is so
and it all
confusing.
came to a head one cold morning when Roger arrived with
I
a
don't
passenger
know.
train into the station. As his driver brought him to a gentle stop, there was a screeching bang followed by a jet of high-pressure steam, and water began filling Roger's cab. His gauge glass had burst and had severely burned his crew. The station master stopped the passengers and shouted at Jimmy. "Get him out! Get him out!" he cried. Jimmy quickly pulled Roger and the train out of the station to prevent the passengers from getting scalded. Eventually,
Oh boy.
an inspector bravely climbed into the cab with a rag wrapped round his hand and isolated the steam and watercocks. Roger was speechless and very upset. His crew had to be taken to hospital, and no one knew if they would ever work again.
I'm sure
That
they'll work
evening,
again.
the shedmaster spoke to Roger. The accident wasn't your fault, and you'll be sent for repairs straight away, he announced. This can happen to any engine, so in the meantime, keep your chin up. But Roger wasn't so sure, and neither were the crews. As he was repaired, he was put onto a siding out of the way. The other engines felt sorry for Roger. Poor engine, sighed Robin. It wasn't his fault. Why won't the crews go near him? Asked Jimmy. There are rumors that Roger is cursed or jinxed, puffed William. Jimmy wasn't impressed. Nonsense. Roger's not cursed at all. Richard looked sadly at his twin. Terry was worried. Do you know anything about this? He said thoughtfully. Richard sighed and looked at his friends. It's not a nice story, he admitted quietly. The engines all listened carefully as Richard confessed to the truth. Before we were relocated here, a man threw himself in front of Roger when he was pulling a passenger train. I won't go into gory details, but it was a horrific sight. That sort of thing stays with you for a lifetime, and it has plagued Roger ever since. The crews don't
That
like
is
engines
so
that have
sad.
killed a person, and call them
It
death
really
engines and
is.
won't go near them because they think they are jinxed. The engines were very sympathetic towards Roger. The railways aren't always a nice place to live, sighed Robin. Everyone agreed.
Oh.
A few days later, Roger was waiting to leave with the Shamrock Express. Usually Terry took charge of the train, but he was busy somewhere else, so the duty was given to Roger. Roger simmered quietly at the station. He was determined to make sure that nothing would go wrong. Jimmy wasn't convinced by the so-called curse. I don't believe you're cursed at all, he explained. I just think you suffer from a terrible pattern of unfortunate events. You can say that again, grunted Roger. It'll all blow over. You'll see, smiled Jimmy. I hope so, murmured Roger. But first I need to win back the confidence in my crew. But that would never happen. Unknown to Roger, a shifty character boarded the train. The Shamrock departed Euston Station at 4:55 p.m. on time. The events that followed would ruin Roger's chance of ever dispersing the title of a death engine by the crews. Only half an hour had passed at the station when the call came through. The Shamrock has made an emergency stop. Man found murdered in compartment.
Oh
Jimmy didn't say a
no.
word. Perhaps Roger's curse was true after all. Terry had been sent to rescue the train. Even though Roger had a boiler full of steam and had been performing faultlessly, he couldn't bring himself to move out of sheer shock. The crew climbed down and spoke to Terry's driver and fireman. So what happened? They asked. A man was murdered by another bloke in the front coach. A woman found the body and pulled the emergency cord. He tried to escape when we stopped, but toppled over the ballast and was caught by the guard. The signalman phoned the police and they arrested him, they replied. The men turned to the Black Five. It would have to be on the death engine, they remarked gravely. You shouldn't say things like that, snorted Terry. It's nasty and out of order. Roger's heart sank. He had had enough. When he got back to the sheds, the story had arrived before him. The other engine stayed respectfully quiet. Richard was the first to speak. Are you all right? What do you think? Snapped Roger furiously. I was only asking, what do you care? I care a lot about you, insisted Richard. We're twins, we've been through everything together, but not this, retorted Roger. I have to suffer on my own while you swan off and leave me here. I have to go. I do your work while you're sat here. Nobody asks you to do my work. Anyway, it's not my fault you're the driver's favourite. Well, it's not my fault you're jinxed. Oh, so you agree with the drivers now, thundered Roger. Shut up, growled Richard. Shut up yourself, roared Roger. The shedmaster quickly broke them up and ordered Roger to go to sleep at once. He then turned to Richard. It has been very difficult for your twin over the past few weeks, and today's event has been the final straw. Roger has needed to vent his frustration, and unfortunately he has done it to you. I wouldn't take what he has said too personally. He still needs you to be there for him, advised the shedmaster. Richard understood, but still couldn't help but feel cross. When the shedmaster left, the other engines remained in silence. No one knew what to say. Eventually Jimmy whispered a quiet, "Good night." No one replied. They were all thinking about poor Roger's situation and how Richard had had to face the brunt of his twin's anger. Everyone came to the same conclusion that this was one issue that would take a long time to heal.
Wow. New character.
Whether you're
Not
starting
another
up
ad.
or scaling up, work happens everywhere.
That last one was a good one.
Yeah. And we saw a new character at the end.
Wait, what?
We saw the next upcoming new character at the end.
Oh.
But yeah, we'll get to him later. Continue with this episode.
Right.
It was a dark time in the sheds. Roger and Richard were refusing to talk to each other after Roger had lost his temper and took his frustration out on his twin. The reason for this was because a part of Roger's past had caught up to him, and a series of events had led the crews into believing Roger is cursed or jinxed. The engines were torn between the twins. They wanted to help and comfort Roger, but he wouldn't let them go near him, so instead
I wonder where the lucky lamp was this entire time.
they took pity on Richard, who was feeling as depressed as his twin. The crews wouldn't go near him either, and soon Roger began being treated as a pariah. He stayed in the shed for a whole 2 weeks and was ignored and forgotten about by the crews. The shedmaster took matters into his own hands. He wanted the twins to speak to one another again. He shunted them together, face to face, in the hope that it would resolve their quarrel. But it didn't work. "You two need each other more than you think," exclaimed the shedmaster. "If you both want to ignore each other, then so be it." And that's the way it stayed.
That's not helping.
The engines were most upset. The sheds haven't felt this gloomy since the war, sighed Fred. "We can't just let this carry on for a moment longer. We have to do something," suggested Babs. Some of the engines had already given up on the situation. "Pah! There's nothing we can do," huffed William. "We should just let it run its course." "Well, you're the compassionate one," grunted Terry. "If we let it run its course, things could get worse," insisted Jimmy. "Desperate times call for desperate measures," added Babs. "We must take action," decided Fred. "Now, here's what we'll do."
Some engines have given
The
up.
engine's
Only
plan
William
was
has
soon
given
put
up.
into action. Their idea was to keep the twins as far apart as they possibly could. This would result in the twins beginning to miss one another's company. Jimmy took Roger under his wing. "Come on," smiled Jimmy one cold morning. "I need your help at the station." "I'm not going," grumbled Roger. "Well, you can't stay here all the time, or you'll be turned into a stationary boiler," teased Jimmy. That did the trick. The crews hesitated at first. They still believed Roger was a death engine, but the shedmaster explained that Roger would only be shunting and heating up the coaches, and so nothing could go wrong. With that understood, Jimmy and Roger made their way to the station. Roger soon began enjoying himself. As he sat heating up the coaches in the platform, he watched Jimmy fussing around the station, pushing and pulling coaches. Roger laughed. "I never knew you were always so busy," he chuckled. "You're up and down like a headless chicken." "I do feel like that at times," chortled Jimmy. Roger had a marvelous day. Terry noticed and smiled at him. "You'll probably be here again tomorrow," he said. "Do you think so?" replied Roger. "Well, it's going to be another cold day, and you never know you might be able to shunt the coaches." Roger smiled at the thought. Nothing had gone wrong all day, and the crews were pleased with him. "Maybe things are going to be back to normal again," grinned Roger. Terry and Jimmy hoped so too. Over a few days, Roger had earned the crew's confidence again, and soon he was allowed to shunt coaches into the platform. The engines all said thank you, and Roger was very pleased. He even shunted Richard's train. The two engines said nothing to one another, but Richard murmured a quiet "thank you" when Roger pulled away.
Wow.
Richard was secretly impressed at how his twin was getting back on track. Jimmy noticed, and when he told the other engines, they all smiled at each other. "I've had a word with the crews," announced Fred, "and they all feel confident enough to take Roger out on a train." "That's fantastic news," cheered Babs. "Roger will most likely be taken out on a freight train, but we still need Richard and Roger to speak to one another," pondered Fred. "They still won't say a word to each other at the sheds," said Jimmy. "What about my mixed goods?" asked Terry. "I always catch Richard at the junction with his passenger train. What if I pull a sickie and Roger takes it instead?" "Perfect," replied Fred, "though I do not condone any engine getting themselves out of work. But for this, I'll make an
He
exception."
left.
The next day, Terry wouldn't steam properly. "Your
You still
pipes must
sharing
be
the
clogged," said a
screen?
workman. "Roger will have to pull your train."
Again, he left.
Terry tried to hide his guilt as the shedmaster inspected Terry's supposed blocked pipes. He had his suspicions, but said nothing as he watched the engines all wish Roger good luck. "Take care," called Robin. "You'll be fine," shouted Jimmy. "Oh, here goes," sighed Roger, and he steamed away to collect his train. Again Richard muttered his best wishes as he too rolled out of the sheds. Only the Shedmaster heard him. He turned to the other engines and smiled at them as he walked to his office. Roger was performing well, and nothing had gone wrong. He had never felt so happy, and the driver and fireman had little to worry about. Maybe he's not cursed
Excuse
after all,
me?
they
The heck
said,
was that?
but they spoke too soon.
That was me burping.
Further down the line, a car had broken down right in the middle of a level crossing. Two ladies were trying to push it off the line. The gatekeeper ran quickly into his hut to telephone the signalman, but it was too late. Roger had already passed his section of signals. "You'll have to flag him down," came the unwelcome reply. As soon as the gatekeeper ran out with his flags, it happened. Roger had smashed his way through the gates in the car. The gatekeeper charged up to the locomotive in panic. "Where's the women? They were here a minute ago. Where are they?" he shouted. "Oh, please don't tell me there were people in that car," quivered Roger. The fireman looked at the driver. "The death engine strikes again," he whispered. Roger was most upset.
Well, worst case, I guess.
At the junction, Babs and Fred were having a rest in the sidings after pulling a long coal train together. The news of the accident soon reached the station master. "Babs, there's been an accident on the level crossing with Roger. You must go and assist the train back to the station," he ordered. Richard had not yet arrived with his passenger train. "Richard hasn't turned up yet," whispered Fred worriedly. "What should we do?" asked Babs. Fred had to think fast. He rolled violently into the back of Babs and bumped her hard. "Ouch! That's not part of the plan," she huffed. "Just improvise," Fred hissed. Oh dear. Silly old me. Are you all right, Babs?" No, I think I've broken down," stammered Babs.
Shut the hell up already.
Their drivers and the station master scratched their heads in confusion. No matter how hard they tried, Babs' engine wouldn't start. "Fred must have knocked some off," said the driver. "She won't be going anywhere." "Well, Richard is bringing in the 13:20 stopping train from Euston. We'll take him off to assist the train here," announced the station master. When Richard arrived, he was informed of the incident. He was worried for his twin. The fireman uncoupled him from the coaches, and he rushed away to the scene. Fred and Babs hoped Roger would be all right, and that no one was hurt. Richard raced to the level crossing. He was shocked to find a smashed car along with a set of broken gates. But to his surprise, Roger was quite cheerful. "Are you all right?" panted Richard. "Nobody's hurt, are they? No, everything is fine," replied Roger. Roger was relieved to see the two women with the gatekeeper. They had jumped clear when they had heard him coming. "Thank you, Richard," said Roger softly. "What for?" quizzed Richard. "For coming here to see if I was all right." "I'm glad you are." There was a small pause until eventually Roger broke the silence. "I'm sorry, Richard, I was so horrible to you. I should never have taken my anger out on you." "I'm sorry too. I shouldn't have ignored you, and I should have been there for you like the others." "I promise I'll never shout at you like that again," insisted Roger. "And I promise I'll always be there for you," finished Richard. The gatekeeper interrupted. "The signalman says you can proceed on your own to the station now." And with that, Roger steamed happily away.
Welcome back.
Yeah, I'm back. My
engine's
mute
plan
wasn't
had
working.
worked, and the twins were once again twins. They wouldn't leave each other's side, and the mood in the sheds lifted. Over the coming weeks, Roger was used more frequently on trains. Everything would run smoothly, and nothing would go wrong.
So
"You
I
know,"
had
said
to try
Roger
and
one
fix
evening,
it, that's all.
"I think the curse is gone." "How do you know?" asked Jimmy. "Well, if I was still jinxed, I may have injured those women in the accident, or, perish the thought, somewhat worse." The shedmaster was over the moon the twins were back together, and decided to overlook Terry pulling a fast one so the twins would be on speaking terms again. "As long as it doesn't happen again," he winked. The engines looked at the shedmaster with innocent expressions. There was never any more talk amongst the crews of Roger being a death engine, and the shedmaster made sure they never said a word of it. "We'll never speak of Roger's curse ever again," ordered the shedmaster. Roger and the other engines agreed, and that's the way they kept it.
Episode 24.
No, trailer.
What?
No, copyrighted music.
Is it all copyrighted throughout this?
Oh yeah, that's Arthur as an LMS engine, by the way.
By the
Oh,
way, if you
no,
play,
thank you.
if you play the music for 1 second, I think you just like, I don't think it's gonna be copyrighted. I don't know.
Oh, and that's trailer 2. Go away!
Wait, I have an idea.
Trailer 3.
I have an idea.
Here we go. 24. What's up?
Arthur's tail. I was gonna say
what
like,
was your
why
idea?
not play the trailers but mute the audios?
Nah. It's best just to skip them and get straight to the episode.
All right. You already got the intro. It's amazing.
Spring was beginning to return, and winter's cold grasp on the railway was starting to loosen. Babs arrived into the shed after delivering an oil train. She was young and had endless amounts of energy. Oh, I wish I was young again, teased Fred. I'd love to have so much energy. Well, at least you're young at heart, smiled Babs. Anyway, you look good for your age. Fred blushed and the other engines laughed. But the subject soon changed, and Babs noticed an empty berth. She thought about Arthur. He had been gone for quite some time. He pulls the expresses to crew and back again, explained Jimmy. He should be back tonight. Oh, I do hope so, pleaded Babs. He's such a kind and friendly engine. You've never heard any of his stories, added Ivert. He's a natural storyteller. Babs was most excited. Oh, I do hope he tells us one tonight. Calm down, love, chuckled Terry. Is he here now? Arthur rolled into the sheds amongst a crowd of joyful but insistent faces. Arthur was very pleased to be with his friends again and could instantly recognize what the engines wanted. Babs noticed his nameplate on the side of his boiler. That's an unusually long name. How did you become known as Arthur if you were already named? Inquired Babs. Well, when I was first built, I used to be known as Ostrich, said Arthur. The engines couldn't help but laugh. Were you called Ostrich because you had your head in the sand? Chortled Terry. Cool, I bet you haven't heard that joke before, laughed Jimmy. Arthur chuckled too. My driver thought it a joke too, but I didn't mind. It always got a laugh either way. Can you tell us why you were called Arthur? Puffed Ivert inquisitively. Arthur grinned. Are you sitting comfortably? He asked. The engines all sizzled happily in anticipation. Then I'll begin. Not so long ago, I had a new Stanier Type 2A boiler given to me in June 1945. This was to the design of Sir William A. Stanier and improved my performance greatly. 3 months later, the war was officially over, and I was expecting the return of my old driver. I was allocated to this very shed for a short while, and I remember the shedmaster had just been put in charge of the sheds, and if my memory serves me well, I distinctly remember seeing Fred on a few occasions. Young Arthur should be back tomorrow, Ostrich, said the shedmaster. He's been asking about you. Oh, I do hope he has a safe journey, I replied. Arthur always kept his word, and when he arrived home, he came to see me. He used to be a young cleaner and worked his way up to be one of the finest drivers the LMS has ever seen. But when war broke out in 1939, he signed himself up and was sent to fight. I was glad when I heard he had survived, and was thrilled when he came to see me. All right, lad, he would always say. Still got you named after a big old turkey, have they? They should name you something proper, mate. Here, I've got my old job back, so soon we'll be out on the line again. You'll see. 3 years later, in 1948, I was given a general overhaul. The railways were nationalised, and the new British Railways wanted to give their engines a different appearance than the old Big Four. I was the only Royal Scot to be painted in a daring choice of apple green. There had been 2 Patriots given the same coat as I did, and as they had no other colour in the works, I was painted exactly the same. The other engines, who were still in their original liveries, would tease me even more. You look like a babe. Other engines, who were no other colour in the works.
You recognize the engine back here.
Australia.
It's Australia.
I was painted
Also, that's a
exactly the same.
jubilee.
The other engines who were...
It's a what now?
That's a jubilee. I don't think that's a Royal Scot that Arthur is in.
It looks like a Jubilee, but it might be a Royal Scot. We don't know.
Yeah.
We would have to ask Josh, I guess.
Yeah. Let's. Okay, let's continue.
One sec. Alright, cool. Now we just... Oh, crap, wait. There we go.
Had no other colour in the works. I was painted exactly the same. The other engines, who were still in their original liveries, would tease me even more. You look like a baby Scot, or an LNAR engine. But on the bright side, my name
Baby
Ostrich was
Scot?
replaced by a more prestigious name, the one I wear today in honour of a regiment that fought in the war, the Honourable Artillery Company. Arthur was pleased about the name change, but not with the railways. The war had taken its toll on an already run-down railway, and he was beginning to miss the military. Well, at least it's an improvement, lad. You always deserve something proper. But I don't understand why they painted you like an LNER engine, grumbled Arthur. I don't know what the railways are coming to these days. I didn't complain, but I understood what he meant. The rails were in desperate need of repair, and the coal was terrible. Myself and Arthur discovered this one day. In early summer, British Railways began the famous exchange trials. Foreign engines from different regions would carry out trial runs on other lines. One day,
An
an A4
A4.
limped into the station during a trial run. All had not gone well. It's that blasted coal, grunted the driver. It won't burn properly. This A4 has no chance of returning the train home again. Arthur turned to me. Come on, lad, let's show these LNER folks how a real engine pulls a train. Oh, I did feel sorry for the A4. After all, it had been trying to create a good impression, and there was me ready to depart with its train.
And Navy left.
The passengers are important, and they must come first. I had a good head of steam, and Arthur gave me full throttle as we snorted out of the station. We made good time too, and the inspectors on board were very impressed.
And he's back.
Alright, thanks.
Little did I foresee that Arthur had lost his patience with the railways, and decided to hand in his notice and head back to the military. When he explained his reasons to myself and the shipmaster, we were most disappointed, but I was determined to make sure that Arthur went out on a high note. During the exchange trials, London was also playing host to the Olympic Games. I was very busy, and trains were constantly arriving into Euston. Everything had to run like clockwork, and the railways couldn't afford for anything to go wrong. Whilst on trial, a new A1 had arrived with a passenger train. He stood waiting to take the spectators home again, when I pulled in next to him. Hello, I see you're on trial too. He cut short and realized I was actually an LMS engine. Begging your pardon. I thought you were one of us. I mean an LNER engine. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to make out that we were rivals.
Isn't this Tornadoes class?
Yes.
That's perfectly all right. It must feel quite intimidating to be surrounded by your once competitors. Oh, indeed it is. I'm glad you understand. Though if you don't mind me saying, I think the green looks better on an LNER engine. I mean, you LMS engines look much better in maroon. I agreed. We certainly do, though it is nice to have a change. I soon became good friends with the A1, and he came to visit Euston on trial runs many times. What we didn't realize was how much of an example we were setting for the other engines, who in time learned to accept the fact we were all together as one railway, and that we could accept the LNER engines as our companions, not our competitors. The A1 proved his worth when I too suffered from poor coal, and he took over from my train. We had a splendid time together, and even Arthur had to admit he enjoyed the friendly rivalry between us both. But all too soon it came to an end, and so did Arthur's time on the railway. I came to see him at the station when it was time for him to leave. He had been assigned to the Duke of Wellington's regiment. Don't worry, lad, I'll be all right, and I promise I'll come and see you as often as I can. You promise, I pleaded. I promise. Maybe next time I see you, they'll give you a better colour, eh? I smiled cheerfully at him. I sat at the platform and waited until he safely departed.
Oh no!
We'll meet again. To the
Copyrighted
folks that
music.
Wait, my
Fuck
dear
you,
girl,
copyright.
beamed off. That's a lovely story, complimented Babs. But you still haven't told us how you became Arthur. Good things come to those who wait, my dear girl, beamed Arthur. That story shall have to wait until
What
next
the?
time.
It was
Oh my god. Your organization is changing faster than ever. And the stakes have never been higher when it comes to managing.
We don't care! Okay, last episode of the stream.
Wait, which episode is this one again? You're gonna like this one.
I'm sure.
Because this one has a certain
The
character
engines were
that
beginning
left
to relax
years
at the
ago.
sheds after a hard day's work. But not all of them were able to rest. Arthur was being prepared
Okay.
for the sleeper train
Let's
to
not get
crew.
any spoilers though.
As the shed staff attended to Arthur, Jimmy bustled in. You know, it's been a year since the Duchess left to live in Crewe, announced Jimmy. Really? Exclaimed Fred, astonished. It only seems like yesterday. How time flies, eh? Sighed Ivett. Everyone agreed. Oh, I do miss her, added Jimmy. Well, she always asks how you all are whenever I see her, smiled Arthur, and she misses you dearly too. Jimmy, Ivett, and Fred all beamed brightly. You know who the Duchess is? Asked Ivett. Indeed, I've known her for quite a while, explained Arthur. Oh, do tell us, whistled the engines together. Babs interrupted. But he hasn't told us how he became known as Arthur. Arthur smiled at his friends and continued the rest of his story. In the early 50s, I was assigned to be reallocated to Crewe, so before I left, I was to be painted in the new British Railways livery. It was a lovely choice of Brunswick green, and I was also fitted with smoke deflectors. Unfortunately, my tender had been damaged whilst being shunted into the workshop, so I was given a black fives tender instead. Oh, I did look rather odd, and again the other engines thought it a great joke. But one engine in particular didn't, and she convinced me that I looked far more splendid than anyone else. Her name was the Duchess. As you know, she had a heart of gold and was breathtaking in her beautiful blue livery. She was a nurturing and forgiving soul. All the engines would bask in her loving glow. How do you do? I'm the Duchess. And you are? She smiled. I used to be called Ostrich, but now I'm the Honourable Artillery Company, I explained. The Duchess's smile grew broader. As impressive as your name is, we need to find a suitably short nickname for you. Oh, I had to agree. My name was far too long, and the shed master and crews were beginning to call me that engine out of bad habit.
Hey, Keegan.
When I was transferred to Crewe, I pulled the expresses to Scotland, but occasionally I would take a train down to Euston, and I would always be greeted warmly by the Duchess. I would always ask about the shedmaster and how Arthur was getting on in the Duke of Wellington's regiment. It was the year of Her Majesty's coronation, and everyone was looking forward to the celebrations ahead. All seemed fine, until one morning in late May. I had just arrived with the Irish mail when the shedmaster came to see me at the station. He seemed sad and anxious. Little did I know that the Duke of Wellington's regiment was deployed to Korea 2 years after the Korean War had broken out. They were part of the 1st Commonwealth Division. They had been hit hard, but had held their ground. Unfortunately, they had lost a number of men. Arthur had been one of them. I don't remember why or the reasons for it, but I was tremendously angry, filled with resentment and despair. Arthur had promised to return to see me, and I felt he had gone back on his promise. I stayed at the sheds for several days, and I'm sorry to say I was a rather vulgar engine. I refused to steam properly, burn coal, or even turn a wheel. I was so angry, no one came near me. The shedmaster became concerned and tried everything to get me moving again, but it didn't work. He even promised to repaint my tender, but still I did nothing. I would glare furiously at the crews. They had all made empty promises, and I felt they were all liars and that Arthur was one of them. But a saint in blue came to rescue me. The Duchess took it upon herself to take action, and I'll always be in debt to her for her wise and kind words. It's natural to mourn the loss of someone in different ways, but you are going the wrong way about it, she advised firmly. Arthur treated you like one of his own. One could be forgiven for seeing that he loved you like a family member. You should always be reminded of the happy and gracious times, never the ugliness of the past. You must help Arthur's memory live on. I'm sure he wouldn't approve of you sulking in the sheds. After all, in his eyes, you were a proper engine. I realized what a fool I had been, and thought long and hard about what the Duchess had said. As she steamed away to collect her train at the station, I apologized to the crews and convinced them I was fit enough to pull a train. The Duchess was most pleased when I backed down next to her. Over the coming weeks, the Duchess would spur me on to make Arthur proud. My trains were always on time,
there was a character
and I
we
could
didn't
give
see
any
before.
Pacific a run for their money and performance. Arthur would be
I've
very
seen him
proud,
before.
the Duchess would always say. And in
The
some
Pannier?
way, I felt she was right.
No, it's not
The last
Pannier.
time I saw the Duchess
I'm
was
talking
at
about,
a
I'm
Oh,
talking about
that
that engine
Pat.
right
when I
there.
was in charge of the midday
Oh,
slot.
yeah, he has a
The
name,
Duchess
but
was
I'm
so
not gonna
impressed
tell
with
you
the
his
change I
name
had
yet.
made. She turned to me and
I already
smiled
know
at
it.
my nameplate. Remember when I
Yeah,
said you needed a shorter name?
it's Patty,
She asked.
obviously.
I remembered clearly, but no suitable
Patty
name had
from
occurred to my thoughts.
Paddington.
How about Arthur? She said proudly. I'm sure he would be immensely honored for you to carry his name in remembrance. I couldn't have been happier. Arthur seemed fitting, and I have been known as Arthur ever since.
Interesting.
Yeah.
The engine
Very.
smiled happily at Arthur. What a beautiful story, said Babs, trying to hold back her tears. So the Duchess named you after your driver, exclaimed Jimmy. The engines were blown away by Arthur's tale, and spent the rest of the evening reminiscing about the Duchess and how much of an inspiration one engine could be. Arthur smiled to himself and thought about Arthur, his old driver. Will you send our love and best wishes to the Duchess, please? Cheered Jimmy excitedly. Of course, my dear boy. It will be my pleasure, replied Arthur. And with that, Arthur steamed silently and respectfully out of the sheds.
Oh my god.
We don't care. Anyways,
that's the end of this part. We'll see you in part 4. So this is
Silver
Oliver
the Dockyard
Productions,
Engine signing out.
Silver the Dockyard
This is Trains Number One
Engine,
Productions.
and Trains
This is
Number One
Trains Number One
Production,
Productions
Trains Number
signing
One
out.
Productions, saying peace, and see you all next time. Bye.
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 Alright, should we enter Discord?